Hi, this is Jules from Integrated Health Association, and welcome to the Functional Medicine Weight Loss Course Orientation. Before we go into this orientation, please read the disclaimer and note that this course is for medical practitioners of various disciplines, and as such, it cannot be construed as diagnosis or treatment, and it's for informational purposes only. So why even consider doing a weight loss health coaching course? So there are various reasons. For some people, it may be for self-improvement. They want to coach themselves into an improved health situation or their family. It may be a business opportunity. You may be aware of basically the global health crisis and want to make a difference in your particular community. It's possible to add this weight loss coaching course to your existing practice. So, for example, you may be a fitness specialist or you may be a medical practitioner and you want to add weight loss coaching to your practice. And of course, doing a weight loss coaching course can help to improve the global health impact. And I'm going to go into why that can be in the next few slides. So if you're going to address challenges in global health, let's have a look at the stats, some of the stats. So nearly 400 million children under the age of 19 are obese, and nearly 2 billion adults are overweight worldwide. That's a quarter of the population. And the diseases that are impacted by obesity are heart health, diabetes, stroke, cancer, non-alcoholic fatty liver disease, sleep apnea, and there are many more that I've not mentioned here. And what's important to note is that genes are not the major contributor to any kind of disease. Lifestyle is far more influential in impacting whether or not you have a predisposition towards getting a disease or whether or not you don't. And of course, that impacts on longevity, how long you're going to live. And lifestyle changes affect all-cause mortality. In other words, they have the biggest blanket benefit on all-cause reasons for dying. So it's interesting to note that obesity kills more people globally than malnutrition. And for those of us who are in the weight loss industry, weight loss is far more complex than simply that ratio, that energy in, energy out equation. Now, at Integrated Health Association, we're very aware that practitioners do not have time to address lifestyle changes. Explaining lifestyle changes, giving the patients tools to affect their lifestyle changes takes a long time. And generally, in a consultation that may be 15 to 30 minutes, practitioners don't have the time to do this. And when I go through this orientation, you'll see what we are offering with this particular course that will assist the practitioner to affect a lifestyle change without taking a lot of time. So in South Africa, we've got some specific challenges that impact our global health here. We've got a problem with the brain drain where many of our medical practitioners have actually moved out of South Africa to other countries because the South African medical system presents its own challenges. There may be poor hospital quality, particularly our government hospitals. The quality there is very poor. Indifferent nursing. Our pending NHI is going to not only increase the brain drain out of South Africa, but it's going to decrease the existing hospital quality. Medical aid funds are expensive and out of the reach for many South Africans. And COVID uncertainty. So the past few years with COVID and the decisions that were made, the medical decisions made around COVID meant that even though we had hospitals and there were doctors, the hospitals were not accessible to us. So when you have a look at our own health and addressing our own health, to be in a situation where we can have access to a health coach that can help turn around individual health is going to be very beneficial to the average South African. So if you have a look at obesity specifically and the root causes of obesity, what we're looking at, what and when we eat is an obvious one. How much we eat. Now, we all know that if people eat a lot of the wrong foods, they're going to gain weight. But very often, it isn't as simple as I mentioned before, this energy in, energy out ratio. There are other factors that are at play that affect whether or not we have a propensity towards obesity. How much exercise we do and what kind. Stress and stress management. Stress feeds into obesity, and there's a circular approach to with obesity feeding back into stress. So managing our stress is very important if we're going to manage obesity or our tendency to become obese. Hormones, and by hormones I mean the stress hormones, but also our sexual hormones. And any menopausal woman will know that as you hit menopause, where there's a tendency to develop belly fat, and that is associated with our hormones. Thyroid health is often mismanaged. The lab results are not effective enough for the standard medical practitioner to address thyroid health, and we go into thyroid health in this particular course, and inflammation, so systemic inflammation. And again, obesity increases inflammation, and inflammation increases obesity. So they have this circular system that feeds into becoming more and more obese, and the global obesity crisis. And energy output. So this is how much energy we expend does play a role, but if you don't address the other factors, then it doesn't matter how much exercise you do. We all know that. Sometimes you can see people who are running marathons who are still carrying too much weight. And we need to have a look at what are all the factors that feed into the root causes of obesity. So because this coaching course is a functional medicine approach to obesity and weight loss, I just want to go through what functional medicine addresses. So we look, as functional medicine practitioners, we look at intracellular communication as well as obviously communication with the outside of the body. Now, intracellular communication looks at the health of hormones, our messenger cytokines, and these play a role in whether or not there's going to be success in addressing weight loss. We look at metabolism and bioenergetics. So that's not only the digestion of food, but specifically the conversion of food into energy within the mitochondria. So if you have unhealthy mitochondria, the body cannot convert the food easily into the energy currency, which is called ATP. So one needs to consider mitochondrial health when you're addressing obesity and weight loss. Also, we look at waste elimination. Obviously this is one that everybody addresses, how well the body can eliminate waste. We look at structural repair and maintenance. So this looks at the cell membranes and the component parts. Now, if I were to give you an analogy with this, let's say you're building a house, you want good wall integrity. So when you fit your windows and your doors fit properly into the wall. If the wall is sagging or it's soggy and it's bowing, for example, then the windows don't fit properly in the wall. And then when it rains, the rain can just come in. Cell membranes are the same. So what helps our external hormones, for example, or enzymes to get into the cell, there are receptor sites, and those receptor sites need to fit adequately into the cell membranes for, let's say, for example, the hormone to dock properly on the receptor site. So if you have poor cell membranes, then the receptor sites don't work properly, and then you get leakage into the cell and out of the cell. We also address transport and circulation, and this is very important because if you're going to be moving hormones, enzymes, and cytokines around the body, you want the transport system to be working well. Now, if you compare the traditional versus a functional approach, the traditional approach generally looks at naming the condition. So, for example, if you come to a practitioner and your BMI is over a certain percentage, then your practitioner will diagnose you as being obese. And, for example, what might go with that is fatigue and low energy. Then you will be diagnosed with fatigue or maybe yuppie flu or any of these factors that they look at certain symptoms and they give a name to those symptoms, and the diagnosis is that name. But very little attention is given to the root cause. In other words, why? Why is that patient obese? Why does that patient have fatigue? If you're looking from a functional approach, that is our priority, is looking at why. What is the root cause of that particular condition that you have? So, for example, if you come with obesity or fatigue or low energy, the question is not that you have obesity or that you have fatigue. It is why do you have fatigue? And we look at the system as a whole, the body as a whole, and we look at all the possible factors that could be contributing as root causes to that particular condition. The other thing is a traditional approach, whether or not you are obese, is measured against population standards. Whereas on a functional approach, we look at the individual baseline. So we look at that person. So we look at the ratio, for example. So some people appear slim, but they have a lot of visceral fat. So that from a health perspective, that visceral fat increases their risks of heart disease, for example. But their BMI might be low. We address that. We don't just dismiss the fact that they appear slim. We look at the whole factor. The traditional approach is more of a separatist treatment approach. So, for example, you might have a dietitian, you might work with your physician. So your dietitian might address what you eat. Your physician might address whether or not you have a propensity for insulin resistance or diabetes. From a functional approach, we look at the body as a whole. So there's no separate practitioner dealing with the separate parts of the body. It's one coach dealing with all the parts of the body that feed into the root causes of obesity. In the traditional approach, the treatment is focused on symptom relief. Whereas in a functional approach, what we do is we address the imbalance and not the symptom. So we will look at every factor that is out of balance. We address those as root causes, and that, because you're balancing the body, tends to reduce any of the symptoms for a particular condition. Of course, in this case, we're looking at obesity. And there is a difference that is challenging. With traditional approach, very often you're given a drug or you're given some kind of allopathic medicine, whereas the functional approach looks at addressing your lifestyle. Now, for a lot of clients, addressing lifestyle is more challenging because it means they have to do the work. But with a functional approach, we develop a relationship with the client where the responsibility of their health is not on the functional practitioner. It is on the client or the patient to affect the changes. So we are guides in the changes they must affect. We are not responsible in the sense we just give them a pill for their particular condition. So I want to segue a little bit into the future of healthcare, because the future of healthcare and our role as a coach, they are intricately tied up. So in the future of healthcare, healthcare is going to be very personalized. So in other words, instead of the one size fits all, each client or each patient will be looked at in terms of their own mix of what they eat, when they eat, their genetic makeup, their genetic variances, what their sports susceptibility is. In other words, can you give them a training program, and how are they going to manage that training program? What is their stress impact? And these are all factors that are going to be personalized for a particular client. It's important to note that epigenetics, in other words, the external factors that influence our genes, are very important, because we may inherit genes, and of course our genes are immutable. We can't change our genes. But what's important to know is that we are able, through our epigenetic manipulation, in other words, certain foods that we eat, our stress impact, factors like this, we are able to create a situation in our genetics that hides certain genes or expresses certain genes. Now, obviously, let's say, for example, we look at cancer. We want a situation where we can hide our oncogenes and we can express our tumor suppressing genes. And we can use foods and phytochemicals to do this. And the role as a health coach can help a client affect genetic changes that are going to be beneficial to that particular client. Not everybody has got the money to do gene profiles, and this particular course does not address gene profiles. That's part of the 14-module comprehensive course, but it's important to know that these are aspects that we as a health coach can affect change in. And I think more than 70% of chronic diseases are related to lifestyle and epigenetic factors, and that's where health coaches come in, because we are knowledgeable about the lifestyle factors that can express or suppress certain genes, and we can guide our client down that particular pathway. So as as health coaches, we address optimal markers versus accepted markers. And by this, I mean accepted markers are the average in a population. So if, for example, you have a blood test and you look at the margins in that blood test, a client may be not show high on a particular lab test because in general, the health globally is so bad on that test that the margins are very wide. But those margins are not necessarily optimal margins. And we address this in the course. In other words, what are the optimal margins for each lab test that you want to aim towards so that your client has got the best opportunity for optimal health? And then the other thing, of course, with the future of healthcare is you don't want to address one particular organ. Let's say, for example, you're manifesting a condition in one particular organ, but of course, all our other systems feed into that. We want to address the systems as a whole and not just one separatist approach, even though it may appear that that is where the primary collection of symptoms happens to lie. So the aim of this course is to teach the practitioner the functional approach to obesity. So what we do in this course, we illustrate the interconnectedness of all the body systems that play a role in whether or not a patient is going to be obese or whether or not they're going to lose weight and how you go about doing that. We illustrate this by system with those ones that are associated with obesity. And as I mentioned before, we illustrate the optimal versus the average lab values, because if you take average lab values as being acceptable, your client will never get well, because those lab values are based on the population, and the population at whole is becoming more and more unhealthy, as we know. So what we look at is how do we return the body to a healthy equilibrium. We look at where does the body stand now, what are the systems that are imbalanced that may relate to obesity, how do you go about returning those particular systems and the interaction towards a healthy equilibrium. But what makes a big difference is that we give the practitioner done-for-you tools so that you can give it to the patient. We accept that time is always short, and explaining to patients and hoping that the patient will remember what you've said is almost an impossibility. So what we have done on this particular course is in every module, we have provided you with done-for-you tools so that you may make a diagnosis. So, for example, you may consider that a patient is gaining weight because they are sensitive to gluten. How do you go about removing gluten from that patient's diet? Very difficult to explain that, so you can just give them the tool that we've already created for you that's detailed and will explain to the patient in a detailed manner exactly what they need to do. And this saves your explanation time, and of course it gives the patient a practical roadmap that they can keep referring to when they forget what you've said, and they can follow that roadmap towards greater health. So the goals of International Health Association are prevention-focused healthcare. We are wanting to guide healthcare towards prevention of chronic diseases rather than addressing the chronic disease when it comes. Now, of course, as a health coach, mostly people don't address their health until there's something wrong. So patients tend to go towards their practitioner when there's already something wrong. And then one has to reverse that. But very often in reversing one particular condition, so for example, reversing obesity helps to prevent the associated conditions such as heart conditions or sleep apnea or even cancer that are associated with obesity. Our approach is a personalized treatment approach. In other words, every patient is evaluated within that patient's own merit. It's really a patient-practitioner collaboration. It's not about the practitioner just giving the patient a pill, for example. It's about the practitioner guiding the patient following the guidelines, coming back to the practitioner, discussing what was easy, what was not, what went wrong, what didn't, what was successful, and so on. So it's a collaboration where both the patient and the practitioner are contributors in attaining that particular goal, which of course in this case is weight loss. It's an integrative and holistic wellness practice. And really what our aim is, we want to improve patient outcomes. And because we address a patient specifically and we address each system that is impacting on obesity with that particular patient, the possibility of improved patient outcomes is obviously that much better. In doing this, there's a reduction of health costs because we all know that the health business is extremely expensive. Many people don't have access to good doctors. Many people don't have access to hospitals. And showing patients how they can affect a change in their own health by making lifestyle changes, guiding them through their lifestyle changes, is obviously going to reduce health costs for that particular patient. And we want to offer supportive assistance. So we want to offer supportive assistance for the patient as they go on in their journey. And Integrated Health Association wants to offer supportive assistance for you as a health coach as you start off in your assistance with your particular clients. So what does International Health Association offer you? So this course is completely online learning, which allows us to keep the price down. It's a comprehensive, integrated, and holistic approach to the information on health. High standard at an affordable cost. All the modules have got supporting lectures, so it's not just course notes that you have to learn. It also has lectures that you can listen to just to help you understand. It's personalized and patient-centric approach towards weight loss. It offers time-saving patient care, specifically in the done-for-you resources. It has a root cause approach as opposed to just the treatment approach or the Band-Aid treatment approach, as we call it. Our goal is to reduce healthcare costs, and obviously we want to improve outcomes. And then the biggest bonus for you are the done-for-you marketing tools and the done-for-you patient care tools. So you can use the marketing tools to help market your coaching business, and the done-for-you patient tools will help you to support your patient in a way that is going to be most effective for them. Who's going to benefit from this course? So medical practitioners, biokineticists. Biokineticists not only dealing with the exercise aspect, but when you're dealing with the exercise aspect and you might have influences in terms of the patient's weight, you may want to support that. Personal trainers. This course is perfect for personal trainers. Chiropractors, homeopaths, weight loss nurse practitioners, sports coaches, massage therapists, and of course any weight loss coaches. So in supporting your client, what are the modules that we've covered? Now, I do want to mention that this course is a selection of the weight loss modules, and it comes from a bigger, more comprehensive 14-module course. But in this particular course, we're covering the weight loss and insulin resistance, quenching inflammation, because as I mentioned before, inflammation and obesity, they are very closely intertwined. Energy synthesis, because if you have suboptimal mitochondria, then your body can't produce enough ATP, so that not only can you not overcome your particular problems, but you can't dredge up enough energy to exercise. Healthy thyroid function, because we all know that when our thyroid is suboptimal, we tend to gain weight, plus we have low energy. Hormones, mood, and stress, because our hormones, not only our stress hormone, but our sex hormones as well, influence whether or not we gain weight and how easy it is to lose that weight. And then we also address laboratory optimal values. So any laboratory test, we've addressed the optimal values as opposed to the sort of generally accepted values. So the biggest and most beneficial point that we offer on this particular course is the resource support. So International Health Association gives you all the resources that you're going to need. It offers you the detailed system by system in a functional approach to the care you're going to offer your clients. So for example, in insulin management, you will establish the root cause, you'll establish the exacerbating factors, you'll measure the labs for optimal evaluation, look at all the variables that feed into it, decide on a support plan that addresses all the variables, and then give the client the resources that we have already given you to facilitate their compliance. So depending on the particular imbalance will depend on where you put your focus, but generally with weight loss, that the combination of the modules that we've offered together will give you an opportunity to give your patient the best care that you possibly can and have the best possible outcome. So thanks for your attention, and our contact details are as follows. The website is www.integratedhealthassociation.com, and you can email us on health@live to100.co.za with any questions you may have.